All right, everybody, welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akley. We have a really fun event tonight. We're going to be talking about Military Special, that famous, maybe not so famous. I don't know how many people actually know about this. It's kind of maybe a hidden secret, I guess. But it is a bourbon that is created just for the military. It's their own brand, which is very cool. And we're going to be trying that. But we're also going to be talking about some military stories. We've got two individuals here. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them at the beginning. We'll get to their stories, though, in just a second. So first of all, Bill Lewis. Bill, you were in the Air Force, right? And how long did you serve? Tell us a little bit about that before we get started. We'll get into the full interview later, but tell us how long you served.
I was in for 28 years, 4 months, and 17 days. But who's counting?
So, and when did you get out? When was your?
I retired the first day of August.
Okay.
Of 2010.
2010. Okay. So been out over a decade now. So
yep.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, very good. Also going to be talking to Tawnya Bennett a little bit later, aka Lady Bootlegger. Hey, Tawnya, how you doing?
I'm good, Steve.
And you were in the Navy, right?
I was.
Yes.
Navy girl, third generation Navy girl.
5 generations? Wow.
Three.
Okay, sorry, I misheard that. I gave you extra credit there. So,
yeah,
sorry.
well, maybe. I do have a long line of veterans, so I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. So you, and how many years did you serve?
I was in from 91 to 93, so I don't have it down to the exact minute of separation like Bill does.
Yes, yeah, we'll talk to Bill about his story, and you know what, his time in the military even plays into how he dresses. So we're going to talk about that. He famously wears a red shirt every day of his life, and we'll get into that when we get into the interview. There's a reason for that ties back to his military service. So I don't know if everybody knows that. We often talk about the red shirt because he wears the exact same look each night. And I've always seen him in that, other than one time when we were traveling in a car, he wore a different color shirt. And yeah, it threw me off. I walked right past him. I walked right past him. I thought it was just another guy with a big long mustache because I always knew Bill only in a red shirt. So exactly. That'll be fun. I want to talk a little bit before we kind of really get into this thing, before we even do any tasting or things like that. I want to talk a little bit about exactly what we're going to be drinking today. So Military Special is an 80 proof bourbon. It's 3 years age stated. It's got a really good look. I think we were talking about this beforehand. It looks really nice. Comes in a liter bottle. Costs about $9 for this. So $9, no tax or anything like that. So it comes through the military exchange stores, and that's the only place you can get it. But if you're in the military, there are certainly plenty of those around. There's 4,000 of them plus in total. They're in all 50 states. They're in 4 different U.S. territories and 34 different countries as well. So, and this is carried in, I guess, most of those. So we're going to be trying that. We're also going to be talking about this one here, Zachariah Harris, because it's kind of the same look. This is a smaller bottle. This is a 750 bottle, but this is a liter bottle, so it's bigger, but exact same type of look to it. This is also 3 years age stated. This says it right here on the top, aged 3 years. This a little bit more hidden, but I did find it. It's back here. It says age 36 months. So in smaller print, but it is age 30. So also 3 years. And because it has a similar bottle, because it's from the same distillery, a lot of people say this stuff is exactly the same as that. We'll see. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't actually know. I've tried Zachariah Harris. I've never tried Military Special, even though, of course, I have this bottle here and prepared the samples. I don't like to cheat. I don't like to work ahead. So I'll be trying it there. As far as Military Special itself, it got started in the 1940s. So the military exchange stores started in 1895, but they didn't start carrying this whiskey until the 1940s, when Monumental Distilling Company out of Baltimore was the one. They had the exclusive contract with the military at that time. Unfortunately, just 2 years later, they had a fire that destroyed the distillery, put them out of business. And so Majestic Distilling took over, and Majestic did it for quite a while. They were known for Pikesville. So if you have Pikesville Rye today, which is, of course, a Heaven Hill product, they were the ones that had it back in the day. And but they had financial problems, and by 1972, they got out of the business, basically, though they continued to make Military Special. So I guess they used the stock that they had, and they just sold under Military Special under the name Atlantic Distillery or Distillers, which is pretty unique because this business is so weird. This is taken over by Sazerac, owns it, and it even says Sazerac on here. It's not a mystery. In the back, you can email Sazerac if you have questions, that type of thing. But it says right here, it says bottled by Atlantic Distillers, which is again that historic name that had it all the way through. Starting in 72, and then really for the next 20 years or so. And then the military got away from having a specific distillery do it. I guess they looked at cost savings and those type of things, and they would just buy by truckloads, and then you'd have to bottle it with their label on there. And they did that up until 2013. And in my research, Heaven Hill was one of the ones that most frequently was doing those individual bottlings. But again, it might be Heaven Hill this time. It could be Jim Beam the next time. It just depended on who was doing that. So, but since 2013, Sazerac has owned it. It is then made at their Barton 1792 distillery. Again, the same one that makes Zachariah Harris. So that's a little bit about the brand history. I want to ask our veterans, back when you guys were in the military, were you guys drinking this? Was this anything that was on your radar? Your whiskey fans, at this point, no, neither of you.
No.
Okay. Have you tried it since then? Is this going to be new for you too as well? Okay.
Never tried it.
Okay.
Nope, me neither.
This is, it's a funny brand in that it's fairly successful, but based on the size and scope. 4,000 stores spread across 34 countries and all states, and that is a pretty big buying power. So it's a decent sized brand within that. But even in the military, it's really bashed. And that's what I found. They did a lot of interviews with people in the story that I was reading, and not one single person in the military had something good to say about it. Now, there's certainly got to be some people drinking it, but the people in the military associate it with just either getting in. And the problem with that, though, is some of the people they interviewed said, the new recruits and things like that, they're drinking flavored vodkas and stuff like that. But the ones that drink whiskey, I guess, are the ones that are buying this. But they said as you rise up through the ranks, officers aren't drinking military special or anything like that. So it kind of has a little bit negative connotation to it. And I think, maybe that impacts this because we just automatically think, well, we hear it's bad. People in the military associate it with, some of the bad parts about being in the military. You hear things about bad food, or it's, I had to do so much work. It's cold all the time. Where I was at Fort Leonard Wood, which is a big military base here in Missouri. People talk, how horrible it is. They never forget their time there. That's a place they never want to go back. People will avoid driving through Fort Leonard Wood just because they don't like it. They'll go other ways around, the long way around things and stuff like that, which is interesting. And I think maybe military special kind of falls into that. It reminds you of the bad times in the military, which we're going to talk about some of the good times in the military, but maybe that's what causes it. I don't know. Again, when I did this event, I thought, well, this is going to be a packed house because I would assume everybody wants to try it. But the funny thing is, to bring this back around though, so they did a tasting with people who aren't in the military and didn't know anything about military special or anything like that, and they were based on the fact they were told it was a value bourbon and all that, they liked it. The bourbon people liked it. So it'll be fun for us to taste this. None of us here have ever tasted this, right? Has anybody on here tasted this? Okay. So it'll be fun for us to try and see, as bourbon people, what we think of this. Again, you got to table your expectations. It's not going to be, there's no way I'm walking into this thinking it's going to be the best bourbon I've ever had. It's a $9 bottle, so that's even hard to compare to. I mean, Old Crow, maybe there's not too many in the sub $10 range. But it's like Old Crow would be the name that, and I guess there's a couple other ones that you'll see sometimes, generic names that are just, but so it doesn't have a whole lot of competition really. So that'll be fun. But before we do our first tasting, I want to talk to Tawnya a little bit about her time in the military. So Tawnya, walk us through how you decided to go into the military. You had obviously family history, 2 generations before you, that probably played a role in it, but tell us, how you decided to do it yourself.
I was always into anything patriotic, anything military, the movies, all of that stuff. So when my dad would talk about his time on the aircraft carrier, because he was a jet mechanic, I was just, sitting there on the edge of my seat listening to everything he had to say. Whereas I have an older brother could care less. That wasn't his thing. Nothing military, interested him in the slightest. It just, it sounds so cliche, but I just had this innate sense to serve.
Mhm.
So outside of when I got out of high school, just kind of didn't have a direction, was working retail, typical, high school age girl doing that kind of thing. And always knew it was, well, kind of going back, living in Colorado Springs has the Air Force Academy. Went there on a tour when I was in junior high school and was absolutely in love with it. And I'm going to go to the Air Force Academy, blah, blah, blah. Well, I didn't have the grades that you could do that. So I ended up, yeah. So just ended up, like I said, talking to a Navy recruiter, and the rest is kind of history in a way, because when I enlisted, the guy asked me, because I always loved aircrafts. So he
Right.
had asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I made the stupid comment, I don't care if I have to wash them. I want to be around the airplanes. And so he handed me out, a few jobs to pick from. The job that I selected was aviation machinist mate. So when I went home, my dad had got home from work, and I was standing there wearing the baseball cap that said Navy, that the recruiter whatever gives you.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what are you going to be? I pull out my piece of paper and I go, because I didn't know what my dad's job actually was. I just knew he was a jet mech. So sure enough, I say aviation machinist mate. Well, typical sailor, you're shitting me, because I signed up and joined as the exact same rate that my dad was, the exact same job that my dad
Really?
was 30 years earlier.
That's cool.
I just knew I knew we were going to be, airplanes together, but I did not have any clue that I joined signed up for the exact same job that he had done 30 years prior.
Yeah.
So
were your parents excited then, or nervous, or what were their feelings about this?
My dad knew that I was going to grow up, and it wasn't that I was a bad kid anyway, but he knew that I was going to grow up while doing it. My mother absolutely was terrified.
Right.
Everything.
Moms can be, right? Sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And at the time that I enlisted, Desert Shield was actually getting started and everything. So everybody really flipped out, because you're going to go to war. You're going to go to war. Nobody, the civilian side of it, no one understood that they got to teach me what to do. They're not just going to put me on a plane and send me over to the desert. I have to learn my job.
Right.
It's not like I was going to be a grunt or anything. So I had no worries as far as being enlisted or joining at a time of war. At that time. So, but yeah, my mom was pissed. She used to go to the recruiter while I was in boot camp and yell at him.
Really?
She was mad. She was, because I was her baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
So where did you go through boot camp at?
I went in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
And back then, the women and the men were completely separated. I think eventually they got to where they didn't sleep in the same quarters, but they would train together. We weren't even allowed to look at them. They were trees, not even allowed to look in their direction.
Okay.
So yeah, I went to Orlando, Florida, and did boot camp. From there, I went to Miramar, California, and learned, oh, I'm sorry, skipped one. Millington, Tennessee, and learned jet mechanics, basically, or the jet engines, helicopter engines, all that stuff. Then I went to Miramar, which is where Top Gun was, or is, I think it's still there, and learned the F-14. And that's what I specialized in, was the F-14. So basically the Top Gun airplane. And then got stationed in Point Mugu, California. And what was crazy is when they gave me my duty station, lo and behold, guess where my dad was at? Point Mugu. So not only had I followed in his footsteps with his job, I ended up stationed at the same freaking base that he had been, some 30 years prior. So
that's
yeah,
cool.
it was crazy. It was crazy to follow like that.
Tell us about boot camp. What that was like going through.
So I'm a freak. I absolutely
Uh-huh.
loved boot camp. I absolutely loved boot camp. It, as long as you know the game that they're playing, you know, that they have to make an example of certain people. Everybody has to get it. They have to break you down to build you back up. If you understand that concept, it's easy. And I knew that going in, you know, and my
Right.
dad had given me the advice, they can kill you, but they can't eat you. Well, I don't know if that was true or not, but it was, it, like I said, I mean, not to say that I didn't have hard times. I did. I was homesick like crazy. To call home and hear your mom's voice
Right.
and you can't even speak. Your emotions are just so overwhelming. You're just like squeaking into the line so she knows it's you. You know, I do
Right.
remember being really homesick.
And we're still at the age where you're talking probably writing letters and stuff like that. Was
Oh
any of
yeah,
that going on?
yeah.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
no internet. It was
Right.
it
Right.
was
You're not, it's not, we're
was
not talking email times or anything. We're talking about
no,
getting
no.
a
It was
piece of paper
letters.
out and writing letters. Yeah.
It was letters. So yeah, writing letters home and waiting for those phone calls to be able to make those, because you had to earn those. So
Really?
we didn't get to call whenever we wanted to. It was,
Yeah.
if we did good as a company, then we got to use the phones on that Sunday or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but
So
I,
I've got a good idea what happened to Mr. Bill here. I know what the men's haircuts look like. What, tell us about your haircut when did you have to get a cut, or what was your hair like going in, and what
um,
did they do to you?
I had I had a very short style. I don't know. I'm trying to think celebrity wise, maybe like a Jamie Lee Curtis, just that really short
Yeah.
boy haircut.
Uh-huh.
Our hair could not go past the bottom of our collar, the back
Okay.
part of the collar. So I know eventually the girls would grow it into like a bob, but it would still have to be longer. But yeah, we kept it very, very short, trimming it in the bathroom. I mean, we
So
all
they didn't have to
were,
do a whole lot to you. You had a short
no,
haircut anyway. So
I
yeah.
went in, I was smart. I knew what was coming. So I knew they took your wisdom teeth in boot camp, regardless of the situation. They always took your wisdom teeth. I had those taken out before I went in.
Okay.
Um, had the
Don't want
haircut.
those Navy doctors doing that, I
No,
guess.
no,
Okay.
no. So yeah, I had my wisdom teeth taken out. I had the short haircut. Yeah, all that jazz. So yeah, I was pretty prepared.
Did you see anyone coming in that had like really long hair and you knew that this would be very traumatic for them? Do you remember that in boot camp?
Um,
Anybody?
the only thing I do remember, there was a girl that had short hair and she had it dyed to where her hair was black and she had like brown spots, like leopard spots.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, they because she was kind of like very punk rock-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a heyday with her.
Yeah. What do
So
they do with
yeah.
that? Does the military dye that?
No, no. It
Like,
they so she had to get her hair cut, but eventually it
right.
just grew out. The
Yeah,
color
it grows
just grew
out.
out.
Yeah.
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 And we're always in a cover. We have hats on outside all the time. So if
Okay.
you were outdoors, you had a cover on. So it really didn't matter.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
what would the runs be like? How when you have to go running? How long are we talking here?
So this is the sad thing because, and I'm not going to speak for Bill, but you don't have an Army guy or a Marine guy on here. So the runs for the Navy were not, PT for us was not, we weren't going on 8-mile ruck marches and that kind of
Uh-huh.
stuff. Yeah, we had certain runs that we had to do. So I had two company commanders, two females. They were both E5s. And then I had another one that joined our company, and he was a senior chief, and he was an ex-SEAL. Well, I guess you're never an ex-SEAL. He was a SEAL, and
Uh-huh.
he had come to Orlando to the base to be a company commander for future SEALs, because they have guys that's their whole designation. When they go into boot camp, they know those guys are going to be SEALs.
Right.
Well, for whatever reason, they had screwed up his job and he ended up with 101 females instead. And he was not a happy camper to have us instead of his SEALs. So
Yeah.
he trained us like SEALs. So if we
Oh.
had like tricep push-ups where you have to hold your hands like a diamond, and those were only for the men. But he would bullshit ladies on your faces, and he made us do those same. If it didn't matter if it was just guy stuff, he made us do that stuff as well. So that was kind of cool too. I mean, in hindsight, it was cool. It wasn't necessarily cool. at
Not
the time.
necessarily fun when you're doing it, but yeah, looking
Right,
back, yeah,
right.
yeah.
But you know, I mean, when I say it's fun, you know, there were moments that, you know, we're and so it's going back to like the running and whatnot. Like I said, we weren't doing anything crazy, but you know, we're out marching and somebody would screw up and they would drop us all in push-up position. I remember distinctly being in push-up position, like maybe a foot away from a red ant hill. So there's red ants all over the place, you know, crawling across your hands and all that. And you can't do nothing about it. You know, you're just, you can't, excuse
Right.
me, sorry, or
Right.
move, you know,
Yeah.
you just have to deal with it. And they counted our days like by week and then day. So for me, there was one day, it was week 6, day 3, and we had some inspection or something, and the company commander looked at something, and I didn't understand what she was talking about, and then she showed me, and I said, oh, okay. And that was like a big no. It was yes, ma'am. And she
Oh.
dropped me and told me to do day of training push-up, which meant week 6, day 3, I had to do 63 push-ups for saying okay. And the whole
Wow.
time I'm down there, I'm just like laughing to myself, like, you an idiot.
Yeah, right. I guess it
So
is one of those
like I
things you
said, it
don't do
was
again, though, right? I mean,
right,
it happens
right,
to you one time, and there's no more just
right,
okays. Yeah,
right,
after that.
right. So like I said, I was one of those freaks that I knew the game. I I can't say that it was a cakewalk. It was not, but I knew the mental part of it. I was okay,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about the food. I talked about the food when I was talking about some of the bad
Right.
things people say about their time
Right.
in the militaries, particularly boot camp. Tell us about the food.
So in the beginning, they even kind of warned us and told us to be careful what you eat, you know, because the milk is very watered down. It's probably skim milk or
Uh-huh.
not real milk, whatever, white water. I don't know. So they did kind of warn us. I do know at the beginning, because you could either go through the regular hot chow line, or they had like kind of a do-it-yourself stuff. I would go and I would grab 4 pieces of bread and packets of jelly and packets of peanut butter, and I ate 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for about the first week.
Wow.
Then calorically, I was dying. So that's when you kind of start breaking down and actually eating the food. And honestly, I didn't have an issue with the food. There were moments that were just kind of like, oh, I've never had that before.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, I didn't have issues as far as because they fed you, like I said, for that calorie stuff. So like the French toast in the morning and that kind of stuff. I don't remember anything bad really, because I think eventually you just get to the point you're going to eat anything because you're starving.
Yeah.
But that was in boot camp. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We had Andy Lang, who was a Green Beret, saying that yeah, they put him through all that, and eventually they have a deal where you have to eat a snake. They're like,
Oh yeah,
just
yeah,
to show you. Yeah.
yeah. Like I said, you've got Navy and Air Force on here. You don't have these guys that are having
Yeah.
grubs and all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Green Beret. I guess they they gotta
yeah,
be ready
yeah,
for anything.
yeah.
So yeah, you
Absolutely.
gotta
Yeah,
survival training. So yeah,
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 yeah. We didn't have none of that.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about your day-to-day job. So you're out of boot camp, and then you're working on the F-15s. What's your role there?
So for me, and so I went to school. The school was, I think, 10 weeks, 11 weeks. And then I ended up, like I said, in Miramar, learned the F-14. And then at my actual duty station, then they send you for me, they sent us temporarily assigned duty everywhere. So before I got to work in my shop and actually turn a wrench on an F-14, I got to go work in first lieutenant. First lieutenant was what they called basically almost like a facilities maintenance. So I learned how to hang drywall and learned how to lay carpet and all the shit that I can do now to my own
Right.
house.
Yeah. It's
I
like,
learned
how handy is that?
then.
Yeah.
So, oh, completely. So yeah, I learned all kinds of cool tasks. And then from there sent me to the line shack, which the line shack are the guys that take care of the F-14s. We had F-14s and F-18s on my base. or not on my base, at my squadron. So we were the plane captains. We were the ones in charge of launching. So we washed them and put oil in them and that whole thing. So it was just a very, almost like running a fleet, but instead of the fleet of cars that like a fleet dealership kind of, I'm thinking of like my work, how the guys have to maintain the vehicles. We had to maintain the airplanes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so that was pretty much my job was, it basically like a 9 to 5, but I worked, I think it was like 3 to midnight, working on the line shack, just doing night launches, fueling the aircrafts, sending them off. I worked for an experimental squadron. So they did all kinds of crazy, whatever with their weaponry, like the computer stuff with the weaponry. So,
yeah.
So it was just like a regular job, and then when I was done, you occasionally had to stand watch and be a part,
Okay. Yeah.
do your duty, but for the most part, it was just a job.
Yeah. So, and then you get out. I'm sure that, tell us a little bit about what was going on when you were getting out. Were they really pressing you to stay and, offering you things and stuff like that? Or how did it go when you were leaving?
No,
nothing like that.
No, not for me. No.
So, so you get out, and what do you do then? So you're at that point, you're a veteran, and you just get into civilian type of work, or what do you do?
I actually started working for the Postal Service.
Okay.
Being a veteran did help me with that. So I worked for the Postal Service for about 6 or 7 years, and then ended up moving over to wastewater treatment, whereas so the thing that my recruiter, they always tell you, your recruiter tells you all these lies, and they're right. When I signed up and I got my, I have all this certification to work on F-14s, and I'm a jet mechanic and blah, blah, blah. I can't go to DIA and work on an airplane. I have to be certified on whatever that is and whatever civilian certifications and all of that. So that education that I got, although was great, didn't transfer over. So, because that's what everybody was asking, how come you're not a jet mechanic at DIA? Well, and at the time DIA wasn't even built yet, but you know what I'm saying. That certification didn't, that wasn't the same kind of thing. And the thing for me too, that really kind of sucked in a way, is being female. At that time, I wasn't allowed to go on an aircraft carrier. We were allowed on supply ships. Women, when I say women were only allowed on supply ships.
Yeah.
If I was to go on an aircraft carrier, it was usually only like a 2-week deployment, and that was it.
Right.
And I was supposed to go on the Nimitz for 2 weeks, and whoever in charge, whatever in charge of that particular deployment, pulled all the females off of that particular debt. So I never got to go to sea and do all that stuff. And I know I have a friend that I met quite recently with the DDPY Warriors Purpose stuff that I was telling you. She was asking me if I was a shellback. Well, when you are at sea and you cross the equator, you become what they call a shellback, and this, that, and the other. And she's quite a bit younger than I am. And I just looked at her and I was like, girl, we didn't do that. I didn't get a chance to do any of that because I wasn't in when we were allowed to. So yeah. And tailhook had happened shortly before I joined. The tailhook scandal was a big giant sexual harassment thing that happened in the military, well, the Navy, that caused this big huge sexual harassment training. So yeah, it was an odd time to be a female in the military.
Yeah.
So
last question, and we'll have a little segment at the end too, where the audience can just ask any questions and stuff like that. But last question that I've got before we taste this military special: what are these military exchange stores like? What is it, just like going into any other type of store? Is it like a little mini grocery store kind of thing, just about? Or
from what I remember, because
cheap prices, I guess. I mean,
and Bill will be able to give you more on that one. I don't think, do we pay taxes? I think
there's no tax. No.
So that's why I think that's why it's cheaper too. There's no tax on it. So
Yeah.
I remember it being the couple that I had been in were almost like a smaller Walmart,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
the kind of like a condensed Walmart.
Like kind of a little bit of everything then you're saying.
Mhm.
They might have
Right,
some
right,
clothing
right,
goods. So yeah,
right.
a little
The
bit.
groceries
name
right
it.
next to your jewelry,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of,
All, everything.
that's
Okay.
what I remember
All right.
from them.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, Tawnya, thank you so much for your service. And thanks for coming on tonight to tell us a little bit about what you did. It was really great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's try military special. We've been talking about it. Let's get that into the glass. Military special. Let's see what we got here. This is going to be interesting. No one here has tried it. Bob Whitlatch has his famous mini solo cup. The preferred nosing glass. I mean, it's light on the nose, not a lot there, but it is sweet. I'll give it that. It's sweet, so it's got some potential there. What are you thinking there, Melanie? You're giving it a good nose.
It's not an unpleasant nose. It
No, no.
smells low proof, kind of a little bit
Yeah.
watered down maybe, but yeah, I mean, I've smelled worse.
I think we've nosed worse on these events before. So yeah,
Yes.
starting a little bit ahead of the game. All right, let's give it a taste. Cheers, gang.
Cheers.
All our veterans out there on Veterans Day.
America.
I mean,
Not bad.
that's not bad. I mean,
Not horrible.
no.
It's not horrible.
Yeah,
It's very light, very,
it's
very
light.
light.
It's definitely 80 proof, and it's got an 80 proof mouthfeel. I mean, it feels more water, but there's a tiny finish. It's not absence of finish. So it's got a little bit in there. It's kind of got some sweet, like cherry like up front, and then kind of yields to a little bit more like a buttery bread at the back. It's not bad.
Yeah, has a decent mouthfeel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It tastes like candy.
Yeah.
Kind of like Smarties.
Yeah.
A little.
So again, that's kind of what the article that I was saying. That it's just, it's more along the lines the person who wrote it was saying it's probably more along the lines of people, associating. Because again, if they are drinking that, it's going to be very early in their career. That's cheap $9 stuff,
Right.
and there's other factors that may have played into it. Whereas this, it seems like it's okay. This is not going to be the worst bourbon you've ever had by any means. No.
Right.
And I was kind of wondering, when you were talking about it earlier, if it was one of those situations, kind of like, I know when I say wild turkey to people, some people don't like wild turkey because of the bad experience. That was their first whiskey experience, and that's when they got super, super
True.
sick.
That could be too. Yeah.
So maybe these kids that are, I'm going to try whiskey, and
Right.
they grab this military
Kids,
kids,
military age. Yeah.
like the Boone's
But
Farm
yeah.
kind of thing. Maybe this
Yeah.
is their
It just drinks
intro.
too
They got
much, and
sick.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're
that's
like,
why
oh, that's just bad stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's bad.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily bad. It's they had a bad experience with
Yeah.
it.
Bob, what are your thoughts on the taste on this one?
Front porcher.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is one you could just pour out, sit on the porch, just enjoy it.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with this.
And I keep telling myself this is really good whiskey for $9 a liter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$9 a
amazing
liter.
price.
Yeah, no tax,
Yeah.
just flat $9 out the door. So that's pretty good.
18-year-olds getting somebody else to buy it for them wouldn't mind the price either.
Right.
That never happens. That never happens. Yeah, Justine, what do you think? What do you think about this one?
It's pretty good, actually.
It's a nice surprise, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a lot lighter.
Mhm.
Like Bob said, you can sit on the front porch. I mean, get
Yeah.
done on your lawn, drink it. Like,
Yeah,
it's kind of refreshing.
it is. It is. Yeah. Okay.
Bill, you
Interesting.
got to bring some of this next time we get together.
Yeah, Bill, you're maybe our new guy. You got to be our connection now to give us
Go-to.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Good thing.
yeah, $9. There you go. Very good. Well, we'll try Zachariah Harris after we interview Bill, and then we'll do, then we'll get side by side. Is this the exact same product, or is Sazerac going for a certain profile that is different from Zachariah Harris? Again, it's going to be from the same whiskey stocks, but that doesn't mean anything. We know that there's a lot of products that come from the same whiskey stock. You look at Sazerac mash bill number 1, mash bill number 2 over at Buffalo Trace. There's a lot of products that come out of that. They're all very different. So we'll see. Is this the same or different? We'll talk about that in just a minute. With that, we're going to bring back Mr. Bill Lewis, and Bill was in the Air Force. And Bill, let's start out by telling me some of the funny names. Like for example, you told me that when people would be making fun of you in the Air Force, they would call it the chair force because you guys are sitting around all day. So what are some of those things that you would call other branches of the military, and what are some of the funny things that other branches would call you guys besides the chair force?
Well, of course, the Marines, everybody called jarheads, leathernecks.
They almost kind of like those though, right? That's kind of like a badge of honor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I mean, you can't. There's nothing that you can say to a Marine to piss them off, and you still walk away. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you're going to say what you want to say, and if you go too far, you're going to know it.
Right. There you go.
But and I don't really the Navy. I'm not sure what they used to call them. Anchors. I don't know.
Swabbies, squids.
Swabbies. Yeah.
Swabbies and squids.
Yeah. Squids. Absolutely. Squids. I remember that.
Squids,
Yeah. We had and then the Army was grunts, and they had a couple of other names I don't really remember.
Yeah. So Bill, you were in there a long time. What was it? 24 years and
28 years, 4 months, and 17 days.
24 years, 8 months, 17.
28.
Yes, 28. Yeah, 28. So yes, so you were in there a long time, and tell us about some of these interactions. And of course, you were in many different countries and things like that.
Right.
But you also like to go out and spend some time at the bars and that. So would you see your fellow military folks in the bars, and would you guys poke at each other in the bars, or would you be like, hey, we're all in this thing together? We're all you just kind of stick with your group and then kind of make fun of the other? Yeah.
Well, it would really depend on the situation, but if there was one Army guy and one Air Force guy, they would usually get along. If there was a bunch of Army guys and a bunch of Air Force guys, they usually wouldn't.
So,
and we didn't really go. Most of the time, we didn't go to bars. We went to the NCO club.
Right.
And if there was an NCO club or an Airman's club that was worth going to, that's where we would usually go. And then, like when I went to Spain, there was no reason to go to the NCO club because there was so many cool things downtown.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So take us back, just like we talked to Tawnya about. Take us back. You going into the military. What was that like? What did your family think, and all those type of things?
So like you asked Tawnya about how long she had thought about being in the military and things like that. So one of my favorite shows when I was a kid was I Dream of Jeannie.
Mm-hmm.
And so Major Nelson.
Yeah.
He was an astronaut, I guess he was an astronaut, and he was in the Air Force. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And then everybody said, well, you got to go to a lot of schools to be an astronaut. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll just go into the Air Force and I won't be an astronaut. So, and then later.
So yeah, you were one of those kids that knew what you wanted to do. I always respect that because my dad was that way. He was a policeman. My dad was a policeman. And he talked about when he was a little kid, he was a policeman, and how he got to be into being a policeman was he used to get chased by a policeman every day. Him and his group of buddies, who were a little bit of troublemakers at the time, would get chased by this policeman. And despite the fact that doesn't sound very pleasant, he liked the fact that guy had that authority, that ability to scare him, and he wanted to be that. And the funny thing is, my dad goes into being a policeman, St. Louis City policeman, and ultimately, guess who ends up being one of his men eventually? That guy, late in his career, the guy who used to chase him every single day, ended up reporting to my dad. My dad had some fun with that.
Cool.
Yeah, so he got to remind him who he was. So that's some fun stuff. So But my dad wasn't mean to him, by the way. My dad's was a really good guy and just respected police. But of course, he's not going to let you forget that either. He had to bring that up, of course. So that's just how he was. So you go in, you decide you're going to go in because it's something that you always wanted to do. Again,
Right.
and you had talked about it even with your parents because they're telling you,
Right.
things like that. What were their thoughts when you ultimately did sign up though? Were they happy with that decision or not?
So we got to step back a little bit.
Okay.
So my grades weren't very good growing up in school and such. And so everybody told me, well, you've gotten such poor grades, the Air Force will never take you. So I went and talked to the Army recruiter, and I wasn't telling any of my family about any of this at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't like anything they had to say. And so I knew I didn't want to go into the Marines because I figured, shit, I'm not tough enough for that. And so I thought, well, the Air Force won't take me. I don't like the Army. I don't want to go into the Marines. So I scheduled an appointment to meet with a Navy recruiter. And then the fucker didn't show up.
Really?
Yeah. So the Air Force and the Navy recruiter were in the same building. And I was just sitting on the floor waiting for the Navy recruiter to come back. And the Air Force recruiter sticks his head out of his office and he says, wouldn't you be more comfortable sitting in my office? And I said,
right. We're the chair force. Come on in and sit down.
I said, there's nothing that you can do to help me because I've already been told that I can't go into the Air Force. My grades were too bad. And he says, well, you could at least come in and talk. And I said,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So I go in and we're talking and he takes my social and looks up my scores and such. And I'd already taken the ASVAB test. And he says, you can have like 90% of the jobs in the Air Force. He said, there's nothing wrong with your scores. I said, cool. And he says, you can't go into admin. I said, I didn't want to go into admin.
Right.
And so I ended up going into the Air Force. And my stepfather was a really, really bad alcoholic.
Uh-huh.
And he would get drunk and be gone for about 6 months at a time. And when he'd sober up, he'd be sober for about 3 years.
Right.
So I go to him first. Oh, my mother had told me because Vietnam had just ended, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years before I went in. She said, if you even think about going into the military, I'm going to shoot you in your foot so you can't go. I believed her.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell her until 3 days before I left for basic. But so I tell my stepfather about joining the Air Force. And he says, what day are you going to leave? And I told him 31st of August. This was 1981. He says, well, give me enough time. He says, I'm planning to get drunk, so I'm not going to be home when you leave for basic because I don't want to put up with your mom. So he goes and gets drunk. My brother comes and picks me up and takes me to what I thought was going to be a 3-day fishing trip, which we didn't even get our fishing poles out of the truck. We drank all weekend and we had a good time. And when I came home, I was too hungover to hear anything my mom had to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I leave for basic training and the rest is history.
Where did you go to basic training?
Blackland Air Force Base.
Blackland Air Force Base.
Texas.
Texas. Okay.
San Antonio.
And what was your thoughts of basic training? Tanya actually said it was okay. She was
physically, it
prepared
wasn't
for
any issue at all.
Yeah.
I thought it would be, but it wasn't at all. They do play a lot of mind games with you though. And, I struggled a little bit with it, but I looked around at the rest of the people and I said, if these assholes can do it, so can I. So,
right. Oh, that's probably a good attitude, right? Yeah.
yeah.
You're all in it together. And yeah, you're like,
Yeah,
I'm better than these folks, so I can do this.
Except for, it's like if you and two of your friends are in the woods and you're being chased by a bear, you're going to trip one of them.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the bear only wants one of you.
Yeah. You only got to outrun one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's I think a lot of us had that same mentality in basic training. As long as I'm not the guy that's being tripped and being eaten by the bear, tough.
Yep.
There's a lot of little things that they do. Again, probably more mind games than anything. But what was something that you struggled with? I don't know. Whether it was, I don't know, not making your bed right, or you didn't polish your boots off. Yeah.
No, that was all easy shit.
Okay. What's something weird that you
Well,
struggled with?
I'll tell you the first night that we were there, most of the beds were bunk beds, so it was one
Right.
stacked on top of the other. Well, I had one that was right by the front or closest to the entry door, and mine didn't have a bunk above. So the TI comes in, he's just doing his rounds, and he's checking stuff out, and he walks past me, and I've got my pillow over my head, and he says, "Are you crying?" I said, "No." He says, "Why do you got your pillow over your face?" And I said, "Because I can't sleep with the light on over my head." And
Yeah.
he says, "No problem, we'll move you." And so that was an easy fix. But
I'm actually surprised this worked out. To me, that sounds like a trap. We'll move you. Next thing you know, you're thrown in a
Right.
closet or something, or
Right.
outside. You got a cot that
so there was this guy, Ron Clay was his name, and he was
Yeah.
right in line, right in front of me in whenever we formed up to march or something. And Ron laughed all the time. Didn't matter what the situation.
Yeah.
"Oh, your dog got run over and killed. Ha ha ha. That's the funniest thing ever." The guy laughed about everything.
There are people that do just oddly just laugh. That's
Right,
right.
right.
Yeah.
So-
They're not being. That's just I don't know. It's the thing they fall back on or something. Yeah.
Right. A nervous laugh or something.
Yeah. Nervous.
So
laugh,
anyway,
maybe, yeah.
he had we all had to have this piece of paper filled out and folded just right, and you got flaps on your pockets, on your breast pockets, and so right underneath that flap there was these 3 pieces of paper, and they were folded just perfect and everything. And so every time Ron would laugh, they would pull one of these papers from him. It's a 341. "Give me a 341." And sometimes they would just go up to you and lift your pocket and take one out. Well, they kept taking them out of Ron's pocket, and he kept laughing. So then they stepped behind him to me, and they pulled one out of my pocket. And I said, "What the hell? I'm not laughing." And he said, "Yeah, but he's still laughing." And he said, "I'm going to pull another one if he continues
It's
to laugh."
the group thing,
And-
right? Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah, and he finally stopped laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that stuff that goes on, right? They kind of,
Mhm.
yeah, they want you to work as a unit. Again, it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
getting you to work as a team. So yeah. Huh. So ultimately you graduate from boot camp, and then where's the first place you're stationed? Because you had a long career. So I know you went around to
Right.
a lot of places. What was the first place
Um,
you went?
So my first tech school was at Chanute, Illinois, and my first winter there, the wind chill got down to 83 below zero, and we had snow drifts up to the second floor window, and we weren't. There was the dining hall or cow hall was in our barracks, and the barracks was like a giant H, and it was 3 stories. And right in the middle of that was the dining hall. Well, there was so much snow and so cold, the people that worked in the chow hall couldn't get to work. And so we would order pizzas, and Domino's would bring the pizzas, but then we couldn't get the door open because there was so much snow. And they told us that we weren't supposed to have food in the dorms. I didn't listen. I didn't pay attention to that. So I kind of stocked up. So everybody else was starving, and I'm like, I ain't saying nothing to nobody, but I got food in my room.
Yeah.
And
Huh.
then I went on to Offutt Air Force Base was my first duty station.
Okay. Okay. And when's the first time you got deployed? You had to go, overseas.
So at Offutt Air Force Base, there were a lot of corn-fed women, They were probably, 18, 19, 20 years old and weighed 200 pounds. And it's just not what I wanted. So
It's taking
I
an
said,
odd turn. Okay.
I said, to hell with this shit. So I put in for an extended long tour, which meant I can go anywhere in the world.
Okay.
I want an extended long tour worldwide. So I've kind of put my.
So when you do that, it's their choice. It's dealer's choice.
It's their choice.
Okay.
I mean,
so you were really, boy, you were.
I was desperate. I was desperate. And so they sent me to Germany, and Germany was kind of cool. It's the weather's a whole lot like Kentucky. It either rains for Christmas or it snows for Christmas. You rarely ever get a dry Christmas or winter anyway,
Right.
And so they told us when I got there, you're either going to go out and do things when it's raining, or you're not going to go out and do anything at all. So I kind of got used to being out in the rain and doing shit. So it was pretty cool. And they sent me to Zaragoza, Spain. One of our guys got drunk on station and was booted off base from a TDY, a temporary duty. And so they brought him back from Spain to Germany, and they said, "Bill, you're going." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it. Man. You're going, doesn't matter." So I get there and I'm working by myself, and I was really struggling. And I ended up, well, I was a parachute packer. So I packed parachutes for in Germany and in Spain for F4s.
Yeah.
And
Bill and I have a difference of
fastest.
opinion too. Yeah, because Bill, his big thing is he's the fastest parachute packer they've ever had.
I was.
And I don't want the fastest one. I actually might take the slowest one. Yeah,
No.
Bill had a thing. Yeah. And
No.
it guarantees you, if it doesn't deploy, the next one's on free. So
Yeah. So we're good to as a parachute rigger, our motto was we're good to the last drop. And if you don't like the way we packed it, bring it back, we'll repack it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I don't like the speed thing. That's yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so you need to understand
yes.
the parachutes that I was the fastest at packing were the drag chutes. So
Okay.
that's what pops out of the ass end of an F4 to slow them down when they're landing.
Gotcha.
And it's also used for
Still very important, but yes.
Yeah. It's also used if the plane it goes into a flat spin, and that's where it's rotating nose to tail, horizontally.
Yeah.
So they can pop their drag chute, and it would pull them out of a flat spin. And it was really important for F4s to have a drag chute because they had a 1-to-1 drag ratio, a glide ratio. So for every foot forward, it would drop a foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
you can't really recover from a flat spin in an F4.
Yeah. So, and again, you went to a lot of different places, a very long military career.
Yep.
What was your favorite out of all those places? And besides
Spain.
like boot camp or stuff, like what was your least
Spain.
favorite? So why? Okay, Spain, but then why? And then what was your least favorite and why?
It was my favorite because all of the beaches were topless.
We're getting a theme here with Bill's
Yeah,
service. Yes. Yeah.
see
Okay.
that.
Okay.
You got to have fun, right?
Sure.
I had a lot of fun
They
in
had
Spain.
topless beaches. Okay. And
I
that's
had a
fun.
lot of
Okay.
fun in Spain.
Okay. What was your least favorite? And why?
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. And
I really don't have to tell you why.
okay. Well, it's just hot and yeah.
It was hot in a whole lot of places that I was at, and it wasn't nearly that bad. Every day we had to go out to the flight line and render salute as the parade of caskets went by us.
Terrible.
And so
terrible.
it was really, really rough.
Yeah.
Really, really rough every day.
Yeah.
And
So
there was a group that I had just met a few days before this. I noticed this big ass truck, and it was like I don't know. You've seen that F-250s and 350s and 450s. And this was like a 750 or an 850 or something I've never heard of before. And it's armor plated and all this stuff. And so I'm just standing there looking at it. And this girl pops out of the truck and she says, "What are you doing? You know, get away from our truck." And she was in civilian clothes. And so we got to talking, and it turned out that that whole group that traveled in this truck was all civilians, and like Blackwater or something like that. I don't know, you know, what company they were from, but it was like Blackwater. And so I met them, and I talked to all the different people. And at that point, women weren't, I guess women had just gotten to where they could be in combat on active duty just a few years prior to this. So this was in 2007. And like 3 or 4 days later, every one of them got killed. And
Jeez.
What made me ask about it was that there was a small coffin that was behind the rest of them. And I said, is that a baby's coffin? And they said, no, that's a dog's coffin. So, and that's what made me realize that it was that group.
Yeah. Yeah. Very tough. And, you know, a lot of times we'll say, our military, they're heroes and all that, but there's no more touching story with you, Bill, than when you're getting deployed to you know, active combat zone, and you have to get anthrax shots. You can only get 5 of those in your lifetime. And
I think it was 5.
Yeah, you always wanted to stay with your group. But how many did you get in your lifetime?
8.
8.
So
yeah,
I was
he didn't want to send his team without him. I mean, that's amazing.
Actually, it didn't really work that way.
Yeah.
I wasn't sent with my group all the time.
Right.
Sometimes I was sent with my group, and sometimes I was sent solo. And this particular time, I had gone like, I don't know, 14, 15 years without a promotion. And most people would have give up and just gotten out. And I said, no, I'm going to make Master Sergeant. And so my commander was just really pissy about the whole thing and didn't want me promoted. And so they had brought paperwork to her on 3 or 4 different occasions to get me promoted. And she said, no, it'll never happen. So they finally took the paperwork. My chief took the paperwork for my promotion to the wing commander and explained everything that was going on to the wing commander. And the wing commander called in my squadron commander and said, do you want to make lieutenant colonel? And she said, absolutely. And the wing commander said, you will never make another promotion until Bill Lewis is promoted. Bill Lewis gets promoted before you. And she said, well, Bill Lewis has never done anything. He's never been anywhere. And she obviously didn't know anything about me and my history and where I've been. And so she said that I had to go on a deployment to Afghanistan. And when I came back, they would promote me.
Yeah.
So I stepped up and they said, well, you got to take your anthrax shots. And I said, I've already had, my limit or over my limit. And they said, you can't go into a combat zone without another anthrax shot. So I had to take more anthrax shots, and I came back and I got promoted.
Yeah. Well, what a career, Bill. And of course, last thing I want to comment on before we taste this next whiskey here, the shirt. I mean, everyone here knows you as the red shirt, but again, that plays into your military career too. Why do you wear a red shirt every day now?
Well, there's a couple of different reasons for it, and I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but I will tell you this. When I was in Spain, my first trip to Spain, they were coming out of socialism, and nobody was allowed to go downtown Zaragoza, Spain, unless they had a collar. So I don't go into public wearing t-shirts. It's it's just not me. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I did that, prior, but I don't know, just something that's kind of ingrained in me. And so I'm always going to have a shirt with a collar on. And then red is my favorite color. We can just leave it there.
Well, you told me before, of course, in the Air Force, you had to wear a blue shirt every day of your life.
Right.
And you're doing the opposite of that. You're wearing your red now instead of.
So my blue uniform was my dress uniform.
Yeah.
And anytime I had to get dressed up, I had to wear, my dress blues. And I just didn't like it. I don't think that it's an attractive uniform.
Right.
It's more attractive than the Army's, but there's a
always,
bunch of
always
other
against
branches.
the Army. Always against the Army.
Well, I mean, the Marines have an awesome uniform. The
They do.
Navy has a
Agreed.
whole bunch
They
of
do.
different really nice uniforms. The Air Force has one dress uniform, and actually the Army switched to wearing. They went away from wearing a green dress uniform to wearing a blue dress uniform, which never made any sense to me.
No, that doesn't make any sense. They need to
But
be green. Yeah.
Anyway, so when I left active duty, I went to the airport and got a job refueling planes, and our uniform was blue. And so I just decided I'm going to wear, when I left that job, I started wearing red all the time. And 28 years in the military, and you've got a daily uniform that you wear. I don't know. It's just something that I felt like I had to wear.
Which is odd because you're busting out of that and pushing back against that.
I know.
Now it's almost like you got a uniform now.
Right.
But
It is like a uniform.
Right.
But you know what? When you've got the same uniform that you wear day in and day out, you don't have, that's one less thing that you have to make a decision about.
The old Fidel Castro mantra. Yeah. Why would I wear anything but what I wear? Because I don't have to make any decision.
Now I do have some gray shirts and tan shirts and stuff, but
really,
and I do own one pair of blue jeans.
Okay. One pair. Huh.
And that's if I've got to really get dirty or something.
Right. Okay. So it's more like the old dungarees where it's a working man's outfit.
I got green jeans and orange jeans and
orange jeans. So other colors of jeans other than blue. Okay.
Yeah. Gray, black.
I'm trying to think what you wear in the wintertime when I've seen you. I guess it's those colored jeans. I don't know. Or do you wear like Dockers and stuff like that?
Yeah,
khakis.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Okay. So I figured. All right. Well, Bill, again, thank you so much for your service. We can never say that enough. So appreciate you, my friend. And thanks for coming out for this. It was really great.
Thank you all.
A bit more about your military career. We'll have an open Q&A in just a minute here, but we do want to taste our Zachariah Harris first. And let's see this again. We're going to get down to, is this stuff the exact same thing as what we just tried earlier, a military special? It looks alike.
The nose is different.
Let's see. Got to do some hard side-by-side work here. So, yeah.
A
little bit, maybe a little more cola-ish. All right. Again, we'll cheer all of our military veterans out there on Veterans Day. Cheers.
Cheers.
Sweet nose, definitely.
So Donna's back in the room, so we can't talk about the topless beaches in Spain anymore. Oh, did I say that out loud?
You're the only one who says it. We're not saying that. Okay. All right.
She said it's too late. She found the pictures.
She did. Oh, of course. Oh yeah, I think they're different.
Definitely, yeah.
I would, again, military specials only sold at the military exchange stores, but you could put this on the shelf side by side and say they're different products. Totally, they don't taste alike to me at all.
No.
So, I mean, the bottle's the same shape and that, but yeah, different product. All right. Does anybody disagree? Does anybody think it's the exact same? I don't want to just speak for everyone.
Is there a proof difference?
No, everything's the same. 80 proof, 3-year-old, made by Barton.
But you could have anything, spread apart by 6-8 months or a
Oh,
year
yeah.
or more.
Oh, yeah.
And they would be, same product, same, and they would be, a little bit different, but, this could be the same mash bill, but
Right.
it's-
Yeah.
they're not the same.
That's why they taste the barrels, and then you're looking for a certain profile, and then you batch those barrels. And once you get somebody who's really good at their job, they can taste, hey, this is more like a Zachariah Harris profile, and this is more like a military special. And I think they're clearly doing that. This isn't okay. Let's just keep running the same whiskey through here. We need to stop. We need to change the labels. No, it's
Right.
a different flavor profile. Okay, so it comes down to this. Here we are on Veterans Day 2021. We're going to put it to the test here. What do you like better? I'm going to go by the order on my screen. Justine, you're first on my screen. What do you like better? Do you like Military Special better, which was the first one we drank, or number 2, which is the Zachariah Harris?
So if we had done these blind and I just went strictly by cost $9 and all the hype and reviews, I would have guessed that the second one
Yeah,
was the cheaper one
right.
and probably the one that everybody was talking about. But I prefer the Military Special, the first one that we had.
Military Special is up 1-0. Bill, you're the next one on my screen. What do you think? What did you like better, Military Special or Zachariah Harris?
There wasn't enough difference for me to say, I'm never going to buy one, or I've got to have the other. It's splitting hairs. They're too close to call.
Okay, he abstains.
Quality and taste.
He abstains. Okay, so here's where we're at. It's still up 1-0. Bill has abstained on this vote. Tanya, what do you think? Do you like one better over the other?
Honestly, yeah, I kind of agree with Justine. The Military Special, the Zachariah Harris, I don't know, it was too similar, but it had a different kind of bite to me. It had a little bit longer finish, but not a pleasant one for me.
Yeah. Okay. That means Military Special is up 2-0. Bob Whitlatch, you're next on my screen. What do you think?
Military Special.
Military Special up 3-0. So here's where we're at. We've got 3 more votes here. If they all go for Zachariah Harris, it could come back, and then we're going to force Bill to decide to split that hair, as he said. But that would involve a 3-0 vote in favor of Zachariah Harris to finish this out. We're going to go to Melanie Robinson next. Melanie, here's where we're at. Your vote is very important here. What do you like better, Military Special or Zachariah Harris?
Military Special.
Military Special has won this with a 4-0 vote, but we're going to finish this out just to find out. Neil, what do you like better, Military Special or Zachariah Harris?
The Military Special. Exactly what Tanya said.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different profile to me. It's sweeter. It's just better. I like the Military Special, and $9. Again, when we get together, Bill, you might have to take a run. Do you have a military exchange store near you?
Yeah, Fort Knox.
Oh, there you go. There you go. We might have to start making a run and getting a bottle of that, having it in stock. It's good. It's good for what it is. Yeah.
I mean, it's very decent. The price is great. And I would imagine it gets overlooked because like Military Special, what's that?
Right.
Those for the name brands.
I've seen it before, but I've never bought it. Never tried it. Didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
If you look at your glasses, the Zachariah Harris is just a little more cloudy.
It is. Yeah. You're right. Definitely right. Yeah.
It gets a little bit darker too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I don't want to leave without having our audience here. Feel free to ask any questions that they'd like to either of our military veterans. You can ask one individually or both, whatever you prefer. Anybody here have questions?
I have a question for Bill.
Okay.
I've always heard, and Tanya, you can chime in on this too, but I've always heard that the chow in the Air Force was better than any of the other branches.
It's not true. The Navy's got the best chow.
Really?
The Navy's got the best chow.
We will have Tanya weigh in on this side. So
the Air Force does have good chow. I would say that the probably the Army's got the worst chow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the story. When I was in Tazar, Hungary, it was around Thanksgiving, and we were all waiting in line, and just all of a sudden the food line stopped. And I was about the fourth person from being served. And one of the guys that was behind me said, you know, what's the problem? And so this is Thanksgiving. They were giving us a Thanksgiving meal, turkey and all that stuff. And so the woman working the line said, we're out of turkey. You know, we've got some that we're bringing in from another tent. It'll be just a few minutes. And so while we were waiting, this guy behind me gets upset and he says, just give me what you got. And she says, I don't have anything. She said, all that's left is the fat from the turkey in the pan. And he says, oh, turkey jello? I love that. Give that to me.
Gross.
Exactly. So if an Army guy is willing to eat that stuff, it's got to be better than what the Army is serving traditionally.
Yeah.
Right. That's funny.
Tawnya, was the food good in the Navy?
Well, like I'm like queen of the temporarily assigned duty, because when I got to Millington, Tennessee for school, I had to wait. I think it was like 14 days, something like that. I don't know, maybe 3 weeks. I don't know, for my class to fill up. So I was temporarily assigned to the galley. So I worked in the bakery, and never in my life had bread pudding. Oh my God, I love bread pudding. So there was just, we also shared with the Marines. The Marines came in, and I think that they ran the bakery like 3 days out of the week. The best were honestly the Marines. Those guys could bake and decorate cakes and all kinds of stuff. It was crazy. So to say that about a Marine is kind of funny, but
Nobody would say anything different to him.
oh, exactly. But the reason I say that is because it was a retirement celebration, and they made a sheet cake, and it was humongous, like 4 foot by 4 foot. And my mom was a cake decorator at Albertsons for several years when I was in high school. So I knew about cake decorating, and holy crap, this thing was gorgeous. And to see that these freaking jar heads had been the ones that created such a beautiful, and not to be stereotypical, but they were just these jarhead men, bakers.
But they were good at what they did. Yeah.
But no, we did have good chow, but the joke is always, as far as, and I don't want to start this pissing contest between branches, because it's funny because we can talk shit to each other, but don't you dare talk shit about us collectively, because collectively we will, but the whole thing with the Air Force, it's like, we were supposed to go to Nellis went on deployments. I didn't, but they had a cleaning service. They had maids. They didn't have to clean their barracks. They had clean people that cleaned for them. Same thing with the sandwiches or the food. It's like, we had Navy people making the Navy food, whereas you hear stories of Air Force. No, they had their own. They had
like chefs.
Like an outsource. They had outsourced.
That's true.
So there's different TikTok videos and everything where the branches, and the guy, they hand a sandwich to a Marine, and the guy's putting crayons in it, and he's eating the crayons because that's like something that evidently Marines are so dumb they eat crayons, whatever. But then they give it to the Air Force guy, and he's holding the pieces of bread and goes, I gotta make this myself. Forget it,
right.
So it's just
it's
that kind of funny, all these little things that
this stuff never goes away, right? This love for the branch you're in. I assume I like that show Forged in Fire, where they make the knives, and sometimes they'll do, each person will be a different branch. And I assume if you're watching that, you're automatically, it doesn't matter who the person is. If it's a Navy person, Tawnya, you're rooting for that person. You want the branch to win. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Billy, I assume you're the same way with the Air Force. Yeah.
But the thing is, like I said, it's a love-hate. One of my absolute best friends is Army, so whatever the Army Navy game is coming up next month,
right.
And we are going to go to town on each other as far as when that happens, so Yeah, it is. It's definitely a love-hate. But
Yeah.
you know, when you're all coming together for that common goal, you know, then there's that love. So
Yeah.
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 Sure.
One of the things that I thought was pretty cool was they always told me, you know, if you're going to go downtown, for an example, in Zaragoza, Spain, they said, don't go downtown by yourself. You know, you get robbed, you get beat up, you get killed. And so every time that I went downtown with a bunch of Air Force people, there was always a fight. There was always a fight. And I got fed up with it. And so I finally just decided, screw this, I'm going downtown by myself. And so I
Right.
did. And I never saw
problems,
that kind of
huh?
crap.
Yeah.
Never, you know, no problems at all.
That's cool.
One day, somebody asked me for a cigarette, and I said, I don't have any cigarettes to give you. And he said, go home, Yankee. And I said, I beg your pardon, I'm from Kentucky. I ain't no damn Yankee. He didn't have a clue.
Yeah. Yeah. He just knew a word to use. So yeah.
Right.
Cool. Any other questions for our panelists? Well, again, thanks so much, you guys, for joining us today. I don't know. I think this was a really special event. I had a great time talking to you guys. I love talking about your military career, and tasting the whiskey was a nice little bonus too. I was kind of cool that none of us have ever tried it. So it was a fun night for sure.
And it wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was not horrible.
It
No.
wasn't.
No, for $9, it's hard to be critical of it when it's sitting at a $9 price tag. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you can find better, absolutely. But for $9, can you find any better? I don't think so. I think it might be the top of the line for price point. So, all right, we'll say goodbye to our folks that'll be watching this on YouTube. Of course, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, whatever else we're supposed to say as YouTubers. Do all that. And follow along for great content like this. We'll say goodbye. I'll stick around if you guys have any questions, anything like that, but we'll turn off the recorder for now. See ya. Happy Veterans Day, everybody. Hey, and thanks to all who have served. Yes, thank you.